Hello friends, can't lose weight? Let's talk about the top 10 foods to eat daily that won't break the bank. You can save money in so many ways because these foods have been shown to help reduce people's appetite, reduce blood sugars, and increase metabolism. Like number 10, adding this ancient ingredient, acetic acid, to your food. Acetic acid sounds so chemicalized, but it's really just the ingredient that you can find in any vinegar. Vinegar stimulates an enzyme called AMP kinase that increases your metabolism by using up your blood sugars as if you were exercising. 2 teaspoons of vinegar with every meal is a target amount to reduce blood sugars, to keep insulin low, and to lose weight. My mom always told me that vinegar was good for me, and she tried to get me to eat vinegar. She tried to serve it as a dipping sauce for dumplings, and she made vinaigrettes with salads. But my palate, it was so addicted to sweets that I preferred ketchup over vinegar anytime. But I really got into acetic acid after I became a doctor because I realized it was an excellent alternative to antibiotics to treat certain skin infections. Now, most people are programmed to avoid sour and bitter, as in nature these tastes usually are associated with toxic, spoiled foods. Sugar, on the other hand, usually means that natural food is safe to eat. So we all gravitate and are programmed to seek sugary sweet foods. But the food industry, they take advantage of the science and they add sugar to just about everything so that we get hooked and we come back for more. And anyone who has tried to quit sugar knows it's really hard to do. And for me, it took me several weeks to train my palate so that I can eat less sweet foods. Learning to like sour also needs training, and I found that it was best paired with something that's naturally sweet but comes with natural fiber, like fruit. This is why I usually throw in some berries or cut up some fruit like apples or pears with, let's say, my green leafy salad drizzled with vinegar. Now, the second trick is just to add a tiny splash of oil, especially if I have a cut in my mouth. One thing I used to do was I would stick my finger in some cooking oil so that I could dab it over a wound in my mouth like a minor cut. This way, when I eat something sour, that sourness just glides over the sore spot. Now, doctors, we can give a cocktail called Magic Mouthwash to patients with severe painful oral ulcers that inhibit people from eating. The problem with Magic Mouthwash is that it has side effects. This is because the ingredients contain, number 1 is diphenhydramine. This is an antihistamine that's found in Benadryl. So if you swallow it, it can affect your brain and make you really drowsy. Another ingredient is aluminum hydroxide, a common antacid that you can find for heartburn relief over the counter. Thank goodness I've never had to use that over-the-counter remedy because aluminum should not be ingested in the human body. So I got rid of my aluminum baking sheets and foil and pans because aluminum is a neurotoxin and is linked to dementia. Now, I'm not waiting for confirmational studies on whether or not aluminum actually causes dementia or some other inflammatory brain disease. I had my fair share of aluminum in my life eating baked goods, especially stuff with baking powder that has aluminum, or baking on aluminum foil, or drinking my share of soda in aluminum cans. The last component in Magic Mouthwash is lidocaine, which is a numbing agent, and you may have used it to reduce the pain of teething for your children. Well, that's not a good idea, as some kids actually have died or have gotten severe anemia from swallowing the medication. Now, some people have swished oil in their mouth before they eat to cover up sore spots. That's apparently a very popular oral hygiene practice called oil pulling to remove bacteria. It does work, but just know that it's also been shown to demineralize teeth. So that's not a good thing if you want to keep your teeth intact. Number 9 is another ancient spice that is mentioned several times in the Bible and has been medicinally used for thousands of years. Just 1/4 teaspoon of the spice black cumin is a proven appetite suppressant for pennies a day. Now, black cumin is known as Nigella sativa, and it's been shown to be beneficial also for gastric ulcers, thyroid disease, and dementia. Number 8 is another ancient herb my mom cut up and sauteed with almost all her dishes. She used it really aggressively, and I actually hated eating it as a kid. My dad would also make me teas with this spicy root whenever I got a cold. Believe it or not, I have had perfect attendance from kindergarten to 12th grade. And whenever I got a sore throat, he would boil this tea, super concentrated, in this big cup. It seemed like a gigantic cup for a little kid. And he'd make me drink it and then send me to school. And if you guess it's ginger, you would be correct. I drank so much ginger and ate so much ginger that I probably would have been more overweight if I didn't eat all that ginger. Ginger has been used for over 4,000 years in Asia, and it's a great motion sickness, nausea, osteoarthritis, blood sugar reducing, and metabolism boosting root. A quarter of a teaspoon of ginger with your meals or sprinkled in your water is all you need to start. And if you're on any medications, be sure to check with your doctor. Number 7 is my favorite fruit to eat, and that is fruit. I lost 10 pounds during the summer between junior high and high school eating a ton of fruit. And for the longest time, I thought fruits were bad because I was told it increased blood sugar and would make me gain weight. It's actually the opposite. I even had a friend who suggested I had burned out my pancreas eating so much fruit and carbs as a kid, and that's why I got gestational diabetes. And that statement got me thinking, really, how do people get insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes? Because I did not want to get diabetes, and if I had to give up fruit, I would do it. And it turns out my friend was partially wrong because fruit wasn't the problem, but the carbohydrates I was eating were. I was eating a lot of refined carbs like bagels and breads and cookies and scones. It was a recipe for high blood sugars. And then when I ate fruit, it would spike my sugar, but it really was the insulin resistance that made it do it. The other problem was that I was also eating high-fat meat. So I really liked soft, tender, rib-like meat, so I ate a lot of Korean barbecue. So not only was I making saturated fat because I was eating refined carbs, I was then eating saturated fat. That's a double whammy for insulin resistance. And because I was getting myself more insulin resistance, no matter what I eat, even if they were healthy carbs, my sugars would go up. So I started reading papers about insulin resistance in relation to food and found papers published in the 1920s. In 1927, this paper actually proved that saturated fat caused insulin resistance. And they tested normal people. So 23 normal male medical students volunteered, and they separated them into 4 groups. One ate a pretty good diet of lean protein. Another group ate a pretty good diet of high fat. They got like oil, mayonnaise, cream, and butter. A third group actually got no food, so they were fasted. And a fourth group had a high carbohydrate diet. Oats, brown rice, potatoes, fruit, bread. And then they added syrup, candy, and pastries. That group got junky carbs. That was my diet. So then all 4 groups were given a sugar challenge about 2 days later. This is known as a glucose tolerance test. And I actually took one of those during my first pregnancy and I failed. Take a look at this graph. The people who fasted actually got the highest glucose levels, followed by the people who ate primarily fat. And surprisingly, the people who ate that junky high carbohydrate diet, they had the lowest blood sugars. And these medical students in that study only ate this diet for 2 days. I was eating that diet for years. And when I cut down the meat and especially the fatty foods and added more fruit to my diet, I didn't actually get gestational diabetes with my second child. Now, lots of people have asked me whether or not smoothies with fruits are good for you. And if you want to control your sugar, the only fruit that has been shown not to spike your blood sugar are berries. Berries like blueberries and strawberries. If that is the only way that you can eat fruit is to make it into a smoothie, then drinking a fruit smoothie is literally better than not eating any fruit at all. And this is because you're getting water and fiber, special fiber like pectin that helps kind of move your stool down the toilet. If you shred that protective fiber casing, that actually releases the sugar in the fruit a lot faster. But some fiber is better than no fiber because when you have fiber, it shuts off your hunger hormone called ghrelin. So a fruit smoothie still contains fiber. That fiber prevents you from overeating. The water also prevents you from overeating more highly caloric fatty foods that actually promotes insulin resistance. Now, unfortunately, the food industry is interfering with how the human body works. And then you have big pharma making drugs that suppress the appetite, and we're eating highly processed fiberless foods. They're not really foods, they're inventions by man, and they're really making our bodies unbalanced. And this is where all the health problem comes on. Now, if you watch my other videos, you know I'm all about maximizing health span. Certain fruits are simply just healthier than others. Berries are one of them, like blackberries and blueberries being on top of my list. So if you can't find these berries, then try number 6, AMLA, which are Indian gooseberries. Indian gooseberries can help reduce blood sugars and therefore insulin spikes. And the lower the insulin, the more weight you will lose. Now, I won't lie, this stuff is hard to eat, but it's worth it because it's shown to reduce triglycerides and increase HDL cholesterol. Only 3/4 of a teaspoon of AMLA powder per day is the optimal amount, and you can order this powder online. Now, number 5 is a surefire way to reduce weight, and that is coleslaw, but not the one drowned in mayonnaise or oil. Here's one of my favorite recipes to eat cabbage, and you will get the best results if you can at least eat 1 cup of cabbage before every meal. And that purple cabbage is so much better than the white one. The ingredients are, number 1, chopped or grated pre-washed purple cabbage, 1.5 cups, 1/4 cup of a chopped purple onion, fruit-infused balsamic vinegar, about 1 tablespoon, and a 1/2 teaspoon of a cooking oil. I also top it with roasted sesame seed, about a 1/4 teaspoon or a teaspoon, and I sprinkle some potassium salt if my kids want some salt. I cannot emphasize the fact that you really need to wash your cabbage well. Listeria monocytogenes is notorious for infecting cabbage, so you can't just cut that open and chop it up. You have to take each of the leaves and scrub it. And it's really important to chop it for about 30 minutes to allow the enzymes to work to release the beneficial compounds called sulforaphanes. Sulforaphanes protect your DNA. Now, this recipe includes vinegar, the very first food we discussed, and it's even better because it already tastes sweet. You may wonder why I emphasize potassium salt. It's actually a great salt substitute for sodium. Potassium is an electrolyte 99% of Americans don't eat enough of. However, people are overeating sodium, and few realize that sodium stimulates your appetite and actually causes your own body to make an inflammatory sugar called fructose, which is worse than glucose in terms of inflammation and worsening metabolism. The salt with the fructose, they both elevate your blood sugar. And simply by switching sodium salt to potassium salt has been shown to reduce high blood pressure. Now, number 4 is the onion that I put in that coleslaw. It's really important, not only because it tastes great with the cabbage, but it's also a great fat metabolizer, helping to reduce blood sugar and cholesterol. You can eat it raw, boiled, or powdered. Now, number 3 is to eat a cup of beans. If you're not used to it, you're gonna have to start small. So I would eat just a little bit with every meal. Beans like chickpeas and black beans are not only a great source of protein and fiber, but it can also help to regulate blood sugar levels, reduce weight gain, and they continue to suppress people's appetite and blood sugar even the day after you eat that bean. And I know for some people, this is easier said than done. And that's because beans can make people feel bloated. With all its fiber, it draws in a lot of water, and you have to have the right gut microbes to digest it. So like an athlete, you're gonna have to train your gut to work up to tolerate a cup of beans. Don't do it overnight. This is a lifetime journey, and you wanna slowly transition so you don't feel miserable. So I usually suggest for people to try 1 bean a day. And if you can tolerate that, then you add another bean with another meal the next day, and so on and so forth, so that it may take you several weeks to work up to eating a cup of beans per meal. And to do it 3 times a day is actually ideal. Now, number 2 is a delicious, convenient way I eat my beans, and that's in a paste called hummus. Hummus is a Mediterranean food. It is protein rich, it's delicious, it's convenient, and sometimes I just eat it by myself. I just take a spoonful out, or I use it as a salad dressing or a dip for really anything. Here's a simple recipe. It just calls for a can of chickpeas, roasted garlic, some lemon, tahini, and then you can add some potassium salt to taste. And I really like sneaking in some vegetables like cilantro. It adds a lot of flavor and a lot of health. Now, number 1 is to add green tea to your morning routine. There's all different kinds of green tea. My favorite is jasmine green tea. But in 2020, I trained myself to drink matcha green tea, which is like eating green leaves. Now, I used to think that brilliant green matcha powder was artificial, but it's actually not. Green tea contains EGCG, epigalactocatechin gallate, a polyphenol that regulates your mitochondrial metabolism. The mitochondria is the defense hub and your battery for your entire cell. It neutralizes deadly and aging toxins made by oxidative stress, which drives high inflammation and accelerates aging. The mitochondria is what these lists of foods are activating to help you control your weight and blood sugar and your immunity. This is why I take a green tea extract daily. There are so many ways to get healthy and to help you lose weight. So if you want to maximize your success in health and weight loss, watch the next video.